welcome to Bird Seeds. This is Joe Bird, and as always, thank you so much for listening. Today's going to be a special episode. It's kind of poignant to me, something near and dear to me. I live with it. I live around it. It's sort of all-encompassing. It's going to be a book review, but it's more than just a review of the book. It's something that I experience quite often. It's a big part of my life. If you've listened to the podcast before, you know that I suffer from chronic pain, and I don't wish it on anybody. It's quite awful. It's your typical low back, sciatica, nerve radiating pain down the legs. It's throughout the whole back. And I do have structural abnormalities in my back. I do have 12 herniated discs in my back. None of them are surgery warranted. I do appreciate a back surgeon that opts not to do surgery, because most surgeons are like, I have a knife and you have a body, let's go. That's what I'm here for. So I appreciate that. It's also been referenced as complex regional pain syndrome, which is basically pain that is greater than what should be based on what's causing it. And it's a really great book we're going to dive into a little bit here that kind of discusses the psychology of pain. I am a big believer in this stuff for sure. Easier said than done, without a doubt. But the chronic pain, so I feel like I personally handle acute pain very, very well. It's the chronic pain that I feel like I just don't deal with very well. So the acute pain, the bee sting or the punch or whatever it might be in that moment, I feel like I can just push through it. Yes, I'll ow or whatever, but I can just push through it. The chronic pain, it just wears me. It just eats away at me. It just wears me down to the point, and this is sort of not pain, but I think it's a good reference point. So I have a sensitivity to epinephrine. And they put epinephrine in Novocaine because for most people, Novocaine wears off really quickly. So epinephrine is a vasodilator that helps it stay in your bloodstream. And for me, with regular Novocaine with epinephrine, which is what most Novocaines are, it would last like 12 hours. My entire head would go numb. And so I would actually opt to get cavities filled or dental work done without any Novocaine whatsoever, because the acute pain of 30-second drill here and there over a 15-minute span, I was much more attracted to that than I was the long lingering numbness, right? The chronic or the acute. And even though it's not pain, and it's pain versus annoyance, I would still choose the pain over the annoyance. So I think that's a really good, strong sort of background in the way that I handle the chronic side of pain. But again, it's a book review, so what are we talking about here? So the book by Doctor John Sarnos, Healing Back Pain. So I was talking to a cousin of mine, I have a lot of respect for him, and he had some back problems. And he said he went to the back doctor, they scheduled surgery, and he went in for his pre-op or whatever the day before, and the doctor looked at him and said, don't come tomorrow, and actually gave him a copy of this book or one of the variations of this book. There's a couple different variations. From my understanding, they're all pretty similar. This is the one I read. But gave him a copy of this and said, don't come tomorrow, read this instead. And his back pain went away immediately. Now, I haven't had that same experience about it going away, but it opened my eyes to a whole just different way to think about pain. And we're going to kind of dive into that. But healing back pain, the mind-body connection. So I believe this was in the 80s. Don't quote me on that. I've read it. I should know the exact times. But the copyright on this was 1991. So I'm assuming this is a study in the 80s, maybe even been the 70s. But basically, he was a doctor, and he started noticing that a lot of people were having back pain, and they would go get an MRI, and they would have structural. So they'd have a herniated disc or blown disc or whatever it is. But the way that they were describing pain, he felt like wasn't nerve pain. So nerve pain should be sharp. It shouldn't be dull and achy. And anybody that's had sciatica knows that it's a dull and achy pain. It's just like in the bones it hurts. And it just lasts, and it's nonstop. So nerve pain should be sharp. It should be in a certain movement, in a certain place, and it should just zing and then be done. So he said it doesn't really line up with that. So he wound up doing a study, and he took an equal number of people that experience back pain and an equal number of people that experience back pain and an equal number of people that do not experience back pain, and did MRIs on all of them, and the same percentage had abnormalities in their spine. So the same number of people that don't have back pain that do had some kind of abnormality in their spine. So he determined the two are not related. They happen at the same time, but they're not correlated together. So now when you start getting into his theories, it sort of sounds a little off the wall or whatever. But then when you break into the psychology of pain and you really like think about what pain is, it starts to make a lot of sense. So he calls it TMS, tension myo something syndrome. I should know exactly what that is. But basically what his sort of opinion is that your mind will create pain to distract you from the emotions and the thoughts that you don't want to process. So if you have some kind of trauma, you have something big, some deep emotions or repressed emotions or unprocessed emotions, that your mind will actually create pain as a way to distract you, so you don't deal with it, so you don't think about it, so you don't process it. That's his theory. Again, it sounds a little outlandish, but it makes sense, right? And we're going to dive a little deeper into that. But again, TMS stands for tension myoneural syndrome. So that's his thing. And basically, how does he say to get rid of it? He says you basically tell yourself the pain's not real, it doesn't exist, and it goes away. Now, where he furthers his sort of evidence that it is related to emotions, he notes that the pain will move around. So you might be able to say, hey, convince yourself, you just ignore it, you just process things like normal, you don't baby it, you just go. And you might have, the leg pain from sciatica. Well, then that might resolve, and then you might have pain show up in your left foot. And I'm saying that because I have that exact same experience, right? Or your right shoulder, or wherever. It kind of moves around. So that's another evidence that it is something that is more than just a physical issue, that it is a distraction your brain is creating to distract you from the emotions, the repressed emotions or feelings that you don't want to process. Certainly think there's a lot to that, without a doubt. So psychology of pain. So what is pain? Pain is an alarm that your mind uses to stop you from doing an activity or doing something that would put itself into danger. So you touch something hot, you put your hand down on the stove, and you're going to feel pain immediately. Well, what's that pain there to do? It's there to tell you to lift your hand up and don't do that again. That's bad. That causes tissue damage. That hurts. Let's not do that. But understanding that pain is a signal started from your brain. Well, it's a receptor that sends a signal to your brain, and then your brain sends a signal back to say, that's pain. You don't have a pain receptor per se. So that is what pain is. And sometimes that pain network can kind of get stuck in the on position. And your mind is ultimately good at what it practices. Just like the first time you played guitar, you had to really think about the chords and where to put your hands and how to do it. And the more you picked up the guitar, the more you did it, the more just natural that is. It just sort of automatically happens. Your mind is the same way, right? So when it's doing something for the first time, it's going to be thinking about it, processing it. Once it knows how to do it, it's just going to do it. And it sometimes kind of gets stuck on the high alert and looking for pain. And that's where I am at with my journey for pain. I was just involved in a study at Hopkins. I'm not going to go into the details of that study, but it was a pain management study, and really kind of interesting stuff, to say the least, and really feel that I've made huge headway in my chronic pain simply by dealing with some trauma and some emotions, and just understanding that the pain's there for a reason, but it doesn't have to be there. So last week or so, I've been feeling pain when I move into a certain position, that nerve pain that you should feel a little bit sharper, but it hasn't been that dull, nagging pain that just doesn't go away. So super big believer in it. Looking forward to continuing this journey in pain management and getting rid of chronic pain. Again, I think I handle pain fine. It's the chronic part of it that really gets to me. But yeah, so I highly recommend it. It's a great book, Healing Back Pain, Doctor John Sarnos. And it's a little bit of a wordy read, if you will. It's a doctor writing it, so a little bit of some details. I tend to like details. Also, just an interesting point, as I flipped through the pages, this page kind of jumped out at me. What he thinks the method in which your mind is causing the pain is oxygen deprivation. So what his theory is that when your mind's going to look for something to distract you from those things you don't want to deal with, it deprives those tissues of oxygen. Now, that's why something like a massage or chiropractor or something like that is going to help. That's why the suction cups you put on you, the cupping, or chakra, or acupuncture or anything, is what do those things do? When you push on that muscle, you're bringing more blood flow to that area. What does blood have? Oxygen. So you're re-oxygenating those muscles. When you do that, when you push on that sore muscle, you're bringing oxygen to it, the pain goes away, but then your mind will then go back to depriving that muscle of oxygen or that whatever it is, and that pain will come back. So I thought that was a pretty cool way. Not only did he talk about the theory of it, but he went into the actual, like what your body's actually doing, what your mind and body is doing, because it's your mind-body connection. Everything starts in your mind. Everything ends in your mind. Thank you so much for listening. This is Birdseeds. Have a wonderful day.